you're ever going to use it, this is the time. Believe in yourself. Take action. I call it the AIM principle: achievement, inspiration, and motivation. I think everybody's got motivation backwards. You know, they say, oh, you motivate and you'll get inspired. Well, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm an achievement-oriented speaker, because I think that if you take the trash out some days, that's an achievement. You know, you might not be able to get out of bed, but if your trash is full, you're going to take it out. That's an achievement. You need to acknowledge it. Then you get inspired. Then you get motivated. So achievement, inspiration, motivation.
Stephen, I want you to speak to one person right now. I want you to speak to that person that has given up hope. This economy, this pandemic has just knocked the wind out of their sails. And they're sitting at home doubting, and they're actually watching you, and they've got tears coming down their face because they want to believe what you're saying. They want so desperately to believe, but they've been knocked down. They've been set back, and they're like, this business is on fumes. And here's a man coming up here saying, it ain't the economy. I want you to speak to that. A show we've got lined up for you today. Waiting on set, we have Mr. Hey everybody, T.C. Bradley, host of God Made Millionaire TV, the hottest show on television. And I've been waiting all week for you, yes you, to stop on by and watch our show. And what a show we've got lined up for you today. Waiting on set, we have Mr. Stephen J. Young. Stephen has closed over $100 million in sales around the world during the worst economic meltdown that we've ever experienced, followed by the uncertainty and challenges presented during the pandemic. Stephen is an internationally known and inspiring motivational keynote speaker with his powerful message, it ain't the economy. And he's here with us today waiting on set. So, without any further ado, let's crack open the God Made Millionaire Bank Vault and let's activate some God-given dreams. Stephen Young, welcome to the show.
Thank you, TC.
Stephen, I am thrilled that you agreed to come on our show today because our world is in a new reality. They call that a new normal. And you're so successful in a specific skill set and talent and ability, and it's closing deals. You are known worldwide as the $1 million closer. Now, I know people are sitting at home going, what's a closer? So let's start out, take the gloves off, and tell us what a closer is.
Well, I've always thought, a lot of times when I saw salesmen, they were like the used car salesmen of old. They were pushing benefits and features. And my belief is that the close is a natural ending to a properly planned and executed presentation. In other words, you're asking the questions that the client needs to know so they can tell you what they want. And if they tell you what they want, you can actually give it to them. You want to know who, what, why, where, when, and how. And if the client answers those questions, then I know what they want, and I can either give it to them if I have it, or not, and lead them to someone else.
Your ability to close a deal is legendary, and you've done it across multiple industries in multiple countries. Give us a little background, if you will, of some of your exploits across the world.
Well, I think the best one is when I started out as a Boy Scout, they had a tent that they was giving out. They had a flashlight and a sleeping bag, and we didn't have any money. You know, we grew up church poor, and I went out to sell popcorn, and you were supposed to sell it for 25 cents a bag, and I sold it for $1 a bag. I actually asked for a donation, and everybody gave me this money, and I had $625. So I won the bag, I won the tent, and I won the flashlight. And they came in, they said, how'd you do this? And I said, well, I just asked for a donation. And I had to go back and give the money back. And what I learned from that is if it doesn't serve the client, it's not worth having. And so when I had to go back and refund all the money, of course, they gave it to the Boy Scouts, but I learned a really good lesson that if it doesn't serve the client, you shouldn't do it. Since then, I've closed $100 million deals in 10 countries around the world. I did it in the economy through the worst depression that we've ever had. And in 2010 and 2011, I did 22 million and 18 million, respectively, myself from the stage.
How does one do that? How does one put those type of numbers up. Are you lucky? You've got people listening at home going, wait a minute, I'm a business owner and I've come through the worst economy in my lifetime and I don't have those numbers. How does a person close those deals?
I call it grace. There's a certain part of grace where you apply yourself and the good Lord looks down on you and says, hey, look at Stephen, look at how hard he's working. He's really put himself to the grindstone here. Let's go down and give him a hand. And so it's kind of inevitable grace. When you put yourself in and you make yourself and you're serving clients, I think the good Lord comes down and gives you a hand.
Stephen, you value the integrity of the spoken word. Now, you talked about in your intro about the typical caricature of a salesperson, a used car salesperson. But you honor and value the spoken word. Can you talk about that, please?
My grandfather built the church I was raised in. My grandmother ran it. It's still called the Ona McKee Circle at the church that I was raised in. And so I was in biblical studies every day. And now, just to let you know, I wasn't the best acolyte, if you would. I was a little to the other side. I was a little rambunctious, the typical preacher's kid, if you will. I just believe that if you speak what you say you want, I always believe the biblical verse that God lives within you as you. I've used that effectively in my whole life. I believe that when Jesus said, physician, heal thyself, I believe that those tools are within us. And fortunately, I've had a strong enough upbringing, they work for me. I've healed myself numerous times from injuries, and I don't say this works for everyone. You have to have a really powerful belief, but God has given me that, and I've had the blessings to use it, and I consider it grace.
Amen. Talk a little bit about the influence of your mom and your dad.
You're going to get a tear in my eye here. My mom and dad were extraordinary. They never told me what to do or how to do. You know, they didn't want me to be the best baseball player, and as you know, I'm quite a very good golfer. They never really pushed me anything. They just kind of let me do. But my mom taught me to read at 2 years of age. I've read every major text of every major religion in the world, whether it was the Talmud, whether it was Buddhism, whether it was Hinduism, certainly the Bible numerous times. And I believe that God lives within us as us. It doesn't matter the religion. And in the world that we live in today, people need to come together. And my mother was always someone who brought people together. Now, talking about my father was a dynamo. By the way, my mom was executive secretary to a very, very powerful man in Missouri and ran his business, literally. My Aunt Mildred did, her sister, and my other Aunt Catherine ran a business. So I come from a background of powered women. My dad was a vice president of Zenith Radio Corporation in charge of trucking in Mexico and the United States. We grew up with nothing. We didn't have any money or anything else, but we always had love. And if there's anything that I would say, the one thing in my whole life is I love. Even when I'm on Facebook, almost always I put love, I don't put like, because it comes from my heart, and I mean it. And people say, well, you know, he always throws those up. Well, if it's who you are, it's where you come from.
Right. Talk a little bit about the story you shared with me about paying the respect.
My grandpa, Charles Scott McKee, big Scotsman, had a friend named Uncle Dutch. And we called him Uncle Dutch. And he came to my grandpa and he said, I'd like to borrow some money. My grandpa said, okay, how much do you need, Dutch? Didn't go why or anything else, said, how much do you need? And Dutch told him. And my grandpa turned to him and he said, now, Dutch, when can you pay this back without having to worry about it, without having to worry about when you're going to make the payment or anything else? What's reasonable for you? And he said, August the 15th. And my grandpa said, okay, now, Dutch, he said, that's reasonable. You can be here on August the 15th. He said, I either want you at my front door paying the money or paying the respect. And Uncle Dutch says, what does that mean? And he said, well, if you can't pay the debt, you got to pay the respect. So my grandpa died in 1960. And I was just a little boy. I was 11 years old at that time. Uncle Dutch got, after my grandpa's funeral, came from Arkansas. He was 93 years of age. He'd caught a bus and he'd walked to get to my grandpa. And he was crying when he came to the front door. My grandma reached him. I was there, and he says, Uncle Dutch, haven't seen you. He said, oh, I heard Charlie died. He said, I never got to pay that debt. He said, I came to pay the respect. And it was such a moving moment at that point. And I realized that if you owe anybody money, you either got to honor them and pay it, or you got to pay the respect, because it eats you inside. It's something that nobody can touch, but it's going to eat you up from the inside out. So people out there, you know, if you owe money to anybody, clean it up. Clean it up one way or the other. Send them something. If you don't send them any money, send them the respect.
Wow. Wow. I love that story.
Thank you.
Love that story. Stephen, you've coined so many phrases, but one of the phrases that I like is listening between the raindrops. Can you share with our viewing audience what you mean by that?
Well, listening between the raindrops is hearing what's not being said. Oftentimes we hear it, people, and we think about what they're going to say or what we're going to say. When I'm sitting here talking with you, I'm not thinking about what I'm saying. I'm actually listening to what you say because I want to articulate what you said and give it back to you in the way that you asked. So many times people will sit in a conversation and they're thinking about what they're saying. In other words, they're in their head. And listening between the raindrops is an art that comes to you when you're actually listening. And it's a skilled set. Listening is a function of intention. You have to be intent on listening to people and not thinking about what you're saying or what is going to be said. You have to be very, very present. So I coined the phrase listening between the raindrops for hearing what's not being said, because I found out that when you really listen, you hear what they're not saying as well. Well, in a selling closing situation, it's very important because oftentimes I'm there, and while I've asked them a lot of questions, there's an underlying thing that's not being said. And I'll almost always get it out because I'll repeat it, I'll hear it in between the raindrops. So I call it listening between the raindrops, hearing what's not being said.
How big of a problem is not listening today in selling or even in relationships for that matter? I know I'll be driving somewhere with Miss Vicky and she's talking to me and I'm off somewhere else. I'm in my mind. I'm listening, but I'm not listening. And she said, "You're not listening to me." Yeah, I was listening. You're talking about intentional listening. That's the difference, right?
Well, first of all, we're going to turn you into a good husband. So it's a function of intention, as I said, and oftentimes we get in our own head and we're doing something and someone talks. And so one of the things that you can do is you can clear the air and say, "Are you hearing me?" And we often hear that for our wives. I'm guilty of it as well. Tara will be saying something to me and I'm off in my head, and I'll stop and I'll say, "Honey, I'm sorry I didn't hear you." Cleaning it up, and then I'll come back, and then I'm really present to hear what she has to say because, she's the most important thing in my life, and bar none other than God, and I consider her a gift from God. So I want to hear what she has to say. I want to hear what you have to say. I care about people. That's why people have called me a professional closer around the world. It's why they call me the $1 Million Closer. I didn't call myself that. I got named that, and it was a real blessing, and it's changed my life because I had to become what I wasn't.
Inside the heart of each and every one of us lies a dream, a purpose we were put here on this planet to fulfill, a God-given mission. And when we tap into it, God will unleash unbelievable blessings over our lives, from our family to our finances. T.C. Bradley's new book, God Made Millionaire, will help you bring the abundant riches of the kingdom to all aspects of your life. Order God Made Millionaire today.
Stephen, recently, not too long ago, you gave a keynote speech called "It Ain't the Economy." It was so well received. I believe that messaging that you're talking about needs to be heard by corporate America today, more so than ever before. Can you talk a little bit about that keynote address, "It Ain't the Economy," please?
Well, it's called "It Ain't the Economy," or is it just you? It's about having results rather than excuses. So often I hear people in my career that will come up and they'll say, "Well, I didn't do this, I didn't do this." And the key is being on time, being present, being with people. And so it ain't the economy. It ain't the money that you get. It isn't. I mean, there's so many people on assistance right now, and they don't want to go get a job because they're getting more money than the government than they get paid. You can't blame them. They're trying to survive. But the thing is, sooner or later, it's gone. You have to do something for yourself. And it ain't the economy. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't matter whether you're a truck driver. It doesn't matter whether you're a school teacher, whether you're a nurse, whether you're a doctor, a physician. No matter what the economy does what it does. Now, here's the thing. So many people are talking about I'm broke, busted, and can't be trusted right now. The key is this economy is going to jump real soon. It may be 6 months away. It may be 12 months away. But it's going to jump. What happened after World War II? What happened after the Vietnam War? What happened after the dot-com bust? What happened after 2008 economy when we broke everything? You know, I did $100 million in sales during that period of time because I don't believe in that it's the economy. It's you. It's what your beliefs are. It's what your dynamism is, what you think about yourself. What you think today is producing the results in your life 30, 60, 90 days according to your level of mastery. So what happens is when you tap into your own level of mastery, what shows up is it ain't the economy, it's you. And we can be responsible for that.
Are closers or salespeople, are they born or are they made?
Well, everyone talks about a born salesman, and I agree. You'd have to say, since my Boy Scout story, that I was kind of a born salesman. I'm supposed to sell popcorn for 25 cents a bag, and I'm asking for a donation.
Right.
And I got all this money and everything. But there's never been a thing as a born closer. My friend Nick Stranik took me out in eastern Colorado, drove me 3.5 hours. I was tending bar, and he came up to me one day and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, what's it look like I'm doing?" I thought he'd had too many drinks. I said, "I'm tending bar." He said, "No, you're wasting your time." He said, "I found out you've got an insurance broker's license. I'll be here at 6 o'clock Monday morning." And he said, "I want you to show." I showed up. He put me in his new Mercedes, made me drive it 3.5 hours. We drove out of Colorado out to the eastern plains. And I said, "Where are we going?" He said, "Stop wherever you like." He said, "How about that house right there?" He stopped down. He went up to the door, wiped his feet, and he says, "Hi, I'm Nick. I'm in charge of the Carson County Medicare supplement programs. Necessary I visit with you." Opened the door and walked in. An hour and a half later, walked out with a Medicare supplement that he'd sold. Well, at the end of the day, he'd sold 3 Medicare supplements, and at the time there was a 50% commission on them, $1,500 a piece. So he'd made $750 on that. We got through about $2,250. So we're about 11 o'clock at night. We're talking, and he said, "Stephen, tell me what you saw." And I said, "Well, that was the best selling I've ever seen in my life." He said, "Stephen, that wasn't selling. That was closing." What happened is Nick went back to all those houses, delivered their policy in 10 days, wrote them all a tax-deferred annuity for $10,000 each, came back 10 days later, delivered the tax-deferred annuity, and took $100,000 out of their jumbo CDs. They were all farmers, and each of them had about $200,000 or $300,000 in jumbo CDs. When the savings and loan crisis hit in 1984, every one of them were saved because he'd put their money in a tax-deferred annuity. One lady, Eva Foxworthy, that we sold a Medicare supplement, he'd sold a nursing home supplement along with it. She was diagnosed 6 months later with Alzheimer's, and it saved her family's entire money. So that's the difference between a salesman and a professional closer. We look for needs and we assess them and give them what we got.
Stephen, what is the difference between a salesperson that makes $35,000, $25,000 a year and a salesperson that makes $1 million a year? How do you develop that mindset of a $1 million closer?
Well, you learn it from somebody that's been there. You know, Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers talked about it took 10,000 hours to master something. I don't believe that. I believe it takes 100 hours if you're with a master of what they're doing. I'm a professional closer. I'm $1 million closer. I've got the stats. I've got the testimonials on my website. And I've backed it up my whole life. And, you know, if you spend 100 hours with me, I promise you, you'll do what I do. And what I do is go to the bank often.
Listen, you're giving back to your craft, to your profession. I want to congratulate you for your book debuting #1 on the Amazon bestseller list. We're going to drop a graphic of it up on the screen. You're award-winning. Why did you write the book, The 1 Minute Sales Close?
Because I think you've got about 1 minute to make a difference in people's lives. And one of the things I realized is that businesses don't have a cash flow problem. You have a closing sales problem. You're not getting the job done. You're not getting the cash in the bank. And until it's in the bank, it's not worth the paper that it's written on at that particular point. But when we show up, as you know, one of my sayings is suit up, show up, shut up, and close up. It's my most famous one. And I think you get 1 minute to make a difference.
What is the biggest challenge or the biggest mistake that a salesperson or a business owner will make in this current economy that we are in?
First of all, not listening. You can't do a thing if you don't listen. You have to know what people want and what they're saying and where their pain is. You have to know where their pain is. Everybody's in pain right now, but it's self-indulgent. The other day, I had a friend of mine, you know, I got my second COVID shot, And everybody was talking about, oh, they were sick, they were down, their arms hurt, and all of this. And I had made up my mind about a month ago, I'm not going through that. I'm not having any of that. And it was true for me. Physician, heal thyself. The kingdom of God is within. I believe that the Lord lives within me as me, and I execute that way in every single thing I'm doing. And my message to all of you out there is that God is in you. I don't care what you've done or who you are. You had a mama, somebody loved you, and you've got that love in your heart. And if you're ever going to use it, this is the time. Believe in yourself. Take action. I call it the AIM principle, achievement, inspiration, and motivation. I think everybody's got motivation backwards. You know, they say, well, you motivate and you'll get inspired. Well, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm an achievement-oriented speaker, because I think that if you take the trash out some days, that's an achievement. You know, you might not be able to get out of bed, but if your trash is full, you're going to take it out. That's an achievement. You need to acknowledge it. Then you get inspired. Then you get motivated. So achievement, inspiration, motivation.
Stephen, I want you to speak to one person right now. I want you to speak to that person that has given up hope. This economy, this pandemic has just knocked the wind out of their sails. And they're sitting at home doubting, and they're actually watching you, and they've got tears coming down their face because they want to believe what you're saying. They want so desperately to believe, but they've been knocked down. They've been set back, and they're like, this business is on fumes. And here's a man coming up here saying, it ain't the economy. I want you to speak to that man or that woman right now that it's maybe they flipped the dial and they think they came across this by accident. And this is a divine appointment right now. I want you to speak to that person listening right now that needs this message that you have of hope and inspiration.
What I want to say to you right now is TC just gave a great analogy. He talked about your sails. Well, imagine that you have a sailboat. What happens if you don't lift the sails? You're not going to catch the wind. You're not going to catch God's power. You're not going to catch that. You have to lift your sails. You have to be active. And you have to trim the rudder to get where you're going in the direction you want to go. The thing is, believe in yourself. Go into your mirror. Do some mirror work. Look in your mirror and say, I am great. I am love. I am light. I am power. I am God. Because God lives within you as you. And if you reach out to Him, He'll come to you. I promise you. Look, I'm a sinner. Let's make no mistake about it. I've done everything wrong in my life for the most part. And guess what turned me around? It wasn't the economy. It was God. And not to be overly religious or everything, as I told you, I've studied every major scripture in the world. What I found in common is that people have one thing in common. I remember a girl in India, I was using prayer beads. And she said, well, are you a Christian? You're from the United States. Are you a Hindu? And I said, well, I'm neither, really. I said, I was raised in a church. My grandfather built the church I was raised in. And she said, well, what are you? And I said, I love the Lord. And that lives within you, in each and every one of us. It just came from divinity. And I have every reason not to have been helped, but I helped myself. And when I helped myself, I noticed I started getting help from somewhere I didn't know. And that's the only reason I'm here today, is that I've been blessed.
Talk about a defining moment in your life, Stephen. Everyone sees the cleaned up Stephen. You're up here looking like $1 million. Talk about that moment in your life where everything changed for you.
Well, when I was young, I was a slick little hustler. I was good at what I did. I could talk people into things, and you could say I was a born salesman. And in looking back on that, it left a pretty poor taste in my mouth. A friend of mine came to me in 1980, and he said, you're full of it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're full of yourself. He said, you just think you're the cat's meow. And I said to him, well, Werner, I said, how do you know it? He said, everybody knows that. You're the only one that doesn't know it. And it devastated me. And he said, look, you're enough just like you are. He said, you don't need to do anything. He said, you're powerful, you're dynamic. He said, honor your true self. And so every day I make 4 fundamental choices now that have changed my life. I choose to be true to myself. In other words, I choose to be true to Stephen. I do what Stephen needs to do and what is right by other people. I choose to be healthy. That's my number one choice every day. We can't have anything without our health. If your health is bad and things, God bless you. I hope that you get well. If this has been a drain on you, look inside yourself and decide to try to heal yourself in some little small way. Start in small ways. I choose to be the predominant creative force in my life. I don't let anybody dictate to me what I'm doing in my life. I do it. I might make a mistake. So what? You know, graveyards are full of people that aren't making mistakes, so get out there and make some. The last thing that I do is I choose to be free. Free from constraints. As you know, I've just built a company and was managing 5 states for the company. I built 10 companies around the world from 0 to 40 million a year, and we've sold them and everything. And I've helped build these companies, and I like working within an infrastructure, TC. The thing is that when I just built this company, helped to build this company running 5 states, I gave up 4 of them last year when the COVID hit, and then I gave up 1 a month ago. I decided I just wasn't going to do anymore. I wasn't free. And what COVID taught me is I was home with my wife, Tara, and I realized how much I enjoyed being with her, how much love we have for one another, how much fun we have together, how much laughing we do. And she's healing, she's nurturing. So I decided that I'd just start building my own business, and that's where we're going.
Talk about your business. Who watching at home should reach out to you for help?
Hey, anybody that's got a cash flow problem, I'll turn it into a sales closing problem and I'll solve it for you. That's what we do. If I ain't got it, you won't need it.
Stephen, we are about out of time. I want to thank you for stopping by today and honoring us with your insights and your wisdom. Will you come back and see me again?
TC, I'd love to see you anytime you ask me, brother.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Hey, JL, can you believe we are at the end of another show?
Man, glad to be here. Season 2, we are here, and it's a pleasure.
You know, JL, I want to talk in closing a little bit about the value of loyalty. I've known you now, I've mentored you personally for over 16 years.
Yep, 16 years. Back when I was 22 years old, I met TC and been with him ever since. Through thick and thin, we've been in.
You know, JL, when God opened up this door to do this show on this caliber, Vicki and I, we prayed about it. You were the obvious choice to help us. We couldn't do this show without you. And that's why we brought you on. You're the CEO. And when you come here, when you come to tape God Made Millionaire TV and activate your God-given dream, you're going to see J.L. Farron.
Absolutely. And TC, look, I appreciate the opportunity. Didn't take much time to think about it. Definitely stepped on board and, you know, some deep waters that we had to step into. But at the end of the day, we do it together. That's what loyalty is all about.
You know, so many people are not loyal today. Right. They're not. I want to encourage you. There's something special about loyalty, about sowing into relationships of those around you and not taking those people for granted.
Absolutely. Loyalty is so important in business. It's so important in relationships. And if you don't have loyalty, you'll lose everything that you have when it comes to really building that business or building that relationship. It's not going to stand firm at all.
You know, JL, I'm looking over there at Big Mike. We're just about out of time, big man. So you know what time it is. It's
I know what time it is.
For the prosperity dance. So, at home, get your shades on, baby. Crank that TV up, because we're going to do our prosperity